Hello and welcome to lockdown lesson number 3, and this one is called Drum Wisdom and the Practice Pad. I'm sure many of us now, being stuck in the house for so long, being drawn to practicing on the practice pad. When I was a kid, I found the practice pad really boring. I just didn't get it at all, and I think a lot of drummers really, when they even look at that, it makes them feel quite demotivated, and they know they should be doing loads of rudiments and flams and all that sort of stuff. But deep down, that's not what they got into drums for in the first place. They got into drums to play music. I started playing the drums when I was 12 years old, and we all start from the same place and knowing absolutely nothing. I think it's very important to understand that each person's journey into drumming is different, and each person's likes and the things they're drawn to are different as well. So we all find our own path on the drums. We're all attracted to our own things. Usually what happens is you get to a certain age and you hear a piece of music and you love the music so much that you want to be a part of it, and if it's the rhythm part of it that you like a lot, then you start banging and hitting stuff, and this is how we really learn. I started playing 40 years ago. It's my birthday in a few weeks, and I've been playing the drums for 40 years. In that time, I've done it a lot, and I have learned stuff. It's the stuff I've learned. I'm not saying it's the right way of doing it, the right way. I don't think there's a right way. I think everyone's got their own way of approaching the instrument. And but I've amassed a lot of knowledge. Now, what does that mean by amassing knowledge? What it means is that you become aware of certain things, you try them out, and they work. And when they work, you then carry on using them more. That enables you to learn more stuff or get better results, which puts you into a new situation. And those new situations bring you more information, and you process that. That's what learning is. Drum wisdom. Now, the reason why I wanted to call it Drum Wisdom applied to the practice pad is because of something that happened to me in 2000, and I want to tell that story, and it always stuck in my mind. I was asked to do a drum clinic with the legendary drummer Simon Phillips, who is an utter hero of mine. And it was the first proper drum clinic I'd ever done. I'd done things in schools and colleges and to 40 people, which is scary enough, but I suddenly found myself in a theatre in front of 500 people, opening up for one of the greatest drummers that's ever lived, and I got very frightened. And I had stage fright. So normally when you have stage fright, you're with the band, but when you're doing a drum clinic, there's nobody there. I was stuck backstage, and the only person sat backstage in his dressing room was Simon Phillips. So I'd only just met him, but I thought I've got to speak to someone, or I'm gonna blow this clinic. I'm not going to be able to do it. So I wandered down to his dressing room, and I knocked on the door, and I told him that I was getting quite stressed up, and he told me something that stuck in my mind, and it really, when you talk about drum wisdom, it's one of those things that somebody says to you and it really sticks with you, and I want to take what he said and apply it to the practice pad today. So what did he say? Well, the first thing he said was, when you play the drums, he said, imagine it's like there's like a valve of intensity. There's like a dial, and as you start playing, you start getting more and more intense, and the dial comes up. You're getting playing more. He said, when that starts happening, bring it back down. So and then it comes back up, and then you bring it back down. So you're always playing within yourself. You're always keeping the pressure on, and I think that's the first really important thing you've got to be aware with the drums. So often we're trying to play too fast. We're trying to play too loud, too intensely. I think that's a really important thing to stick in the mind before we start playing. The next thing he said was, when you go out there, he says, don't try and play everything you can do. Right? He said, just play some drums. Don't try and play some Latin beats, then some linear funk, and then some fast double bass drums. And just play. He said, I remember he said to me, if you're any good, you're not going to be able to do everything you can do. So just do some of what you can do. So let's park that in our mind as well. And the last and probably the most important thing he said, don't go out there to play the drums. He said, go out there to play some music. This is what we got all into this for in the first place, was to play music to make a sound that we like. Okay, so how does this apply to the practice pad? Well, one of the problems you have with the practice pad is that as soon as you sit in front of the practice pad, you feel like you need to play rudiments. You know, I've got them all here. Vic first rudiments, flam drags, drag roughs, single drag taps, flam accents, flam paradiddles, double ratamikus. That's what you should be doing on the drums. Well, let me tell you something about those rudiments. They're like licks, and they're designed for drummers who are playing in drum corps, right, primarily. There's incredible things we can do by applying them onto the drum kit, but we are applying them onto the drums. When we play the drums, we've got a completely different set of problems in front of us, because we're not playing one instrument, we're playing a number of instruments all at the same time. And in doing that, that involves a whole bunch of skills that aren't involved in just playing drum corps and just playing a snare drum. But if you're playing in a snare drum in a drum corps and you're lined up with all these other people, you want to have some licks. That's what these are, they're snare drum licks. And they're designed in a lot of ways to look cool, so that when you play them, you know, when you play the drums in a band, it doesn't matter what it sounds like. Sorry, it does matter what it sounds like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Some of us want to get into spinning all the sticks, maybe that's important. But what it looks like doesn't matter. But when you've got a whole bunch of people lined up, and you are trying to get this sound, it might be cooler to do it like this. And we have to make sure that everyone's right hand's going up at the same time and everybody's left hand's going up at the same time. It's like flam triplets. I play flam triplets using what I think are called, I'm going to have to have a look at my book. See, yes, Swiss Army triplets, which go like this. But that doesn't look nice. If you want to do it in a drum corps, you want to do just standard flam triplets. Because they just look cooler with both hands going up. So there's a lot of that going on with drum rudiments, right? I'll put those back there. They're going to come into play in a minute. Yeah, rudiments. I've got a problem with rudiments. Because when I learnt the drums, first thing I learnt was a rock beat. Right, and then once I got a rock beat down, I had to learn how to open the hi-hat, I had to get my bass drum going. I was into John Bonham, I want to get that fast bass drum, and I could hear John Bonham with all these triplets around the kit. And that's what drumming was to me, you know. Learning a triplet flam mill didn't seem that relevant to what I was trying to do personally. But what the breakthrough for me was realising that you could think of drums in terms of singles and doubles. And I started to think in terms of singles and doubles and how you string those together on the drums. And that's how I got into rudiments. Paradiddles are very important to me. Double paradiddles, paradiddle diddles, singles and doubles. And then a few things that I play that haven't got any names, but there's only a few of them. I had no interest in learning 40 rudiments on the drum kit. There was other stuff I needed to learn. So when you sit down in front of this pad, right, and you want to play, I think you need to go back to what Simon Phillips told me. Number one, don't try and do everything you can do. Just do a few things, right, and try and get them really good, right? I've found so much mileage in just saying to a student, right, we're going to just really nail double paradiddle, and just really nailing it, and sitting down every day and just playing some double paradiddle, not fast, nice and slow, and all that sort of stuff. And eventually that happens, right? There's a danger if you just do one rudiment over and over again, that can get like really drilled into your brain. You can't play anything else. So you have to practice in a certain way. How do you stop it getting ingrained into your mind? It's by doing other stuff with it. It's by putting other stuff alongside it. So yes, the first thing, don't try and do everything, right? Don't say I'm going to learn all 30 or 40 rudiments. I'm going to go through this, I'm going to go through the whole of stick control. Just take a few things and do them a lot, and do them well. And by doing them well, I mean doing them slowly, in time and smoothly. Okay? So that advice has really stuck with me all the whole time I've practiced. I tend to practice very little small things, and I do them a lot, and I do them because I think they're going to benefit me. Okay, the next one, play music. This is really, really important to practicing all the time. Is make sure you're making it sound musical, and give it a context which is a musical. And the whole time you're doing this, do not push that intensity-ometer too high. Try and keep that low, right? Don't try and play fast. Don't try and play loud. Try and play in control, right? So, what would be my approach to the practice pad? Well, the first thing you need to do is get yourself a teacher. I've got 2 teachers here. Brushes. Brushes are brilliant teachers. They will teach your hands. You can go and see someone and they'll tell you how to hold the sticks and all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to try and talk a little bit about that today. But if you get brushes, they are great for teaching your hands, right? And brushes sound great on absolutely everything. They always sound great. And the music's in there, right? Get yourself a book. Stick control. Because stick control sounds absolutely lovely. If you haven't got a practice pad, play on a book. Get some brushes and a book and start playing, right? Get yourself a music stand. I've got a music stand here because music stands sound great. Right, so this brings me on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. The elements of drums, the elements of music. It's not rudiments, right? For a drummer, we've basically got, for me, 2 things we've got to deal with, and then we've got to apply it to a third thing. So the first thing is rhythms. You need to study rhythms, okay? Which means really studying the 16th note series and the triplet series. And I talked a little about that in the last video, if you want to go back and have a look at that. But rhythms, really, really important. So let's try and make some music. So I've got click here. I'm going to say it's 80 BPM. And I'm going to just play some rhythms with my right hand. So here we go. So that's something you need to practice, and I couldn't help it. I brought in a second element, which is dynamics, right? Dynamics are really, really important on the drums, right? If I take a single stroke roll and play it, it's just boring until we bring some dynamics in. This is the stuff you need to play on your practice pad or your copy of Stick Control or whatever your favourite book is. This is the stuff you need to be practicing. Rhythms and dynamics. And as soon as we get into those things, we get into proper drum technique. But having this here is great. I think that you need, if as soon as you start looking at rudiments, the whole reason why rudiments, or stickings as I like to call them, are important for the drums is because when we apply them to two surfaces, we start to hear a different sound, right? So here, if you've got decent technique, I'm not saying I have, but if you've got decent technique, your single stroke rolls should sound the same as your paradiddles. Singles, paradiddles. They should sound the same, and you should be practicing to make them sound the same. But on the drums, as soon as we put them on two surfaces, they sound completely different. This is a really important factor when it comes to practicing the drums and applying rudiments onto the drum kits. They have a certain sound, the drums, that's really, really important thing. So what rudiments do is they're a way of applying some of those rhythms and dynamics onto the drum kits. But rudimentally, if we really want to talk about the drums, the most important thing is rhythms and dynamics, and you need to practice them. So a really good way of practicing that is a 16th note series, and in terms of dynamics, accents, it's Moeller technique. I feel like I might have to do a huge video just on Moeller technique, but I went through it a little bit in the last video, and I'm going to go through it again. If we just play without dynamics correctly, we should be playing pretty much from the wrist. And I call these full strokes or rebounds. Okay, you can see, and that's your starting point technically. So you want something to do on a pad, that is where I'd start, is with that. Getting your wrist working. Alright, when I practice to make this work, I usually hold the sticks up. It's called idle hand high, and you work from that point. To get the wrists working. Right, that's your basic stroke. When we play an accent on the drums, we do what's called a Moeller whip, and I think I end up talking about this in every single video. I'm going to talk about it in a different way to the way I talked about it last time, so you can get some different angles on it. But the Moeller whip is a pumping action that you get in your wrist. Now most drummers do this naturally, and this is something that comes from playing the drums and playing for music. When you were a kid and you started playing, you heard rock beats, you heard this sound, bam, 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 and you subconsciously took that in. And what you found is, you start to do that on the hi-hats. That's Moeller technique. There's a whip, bang, whip, 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 bang. And if you look at the way my hand's working, you look at my wrist, there's a pumping action which is going like this. That is Moeller technique. Right, and it sort of whips down the arm like this. There, if I can show you that there, that is Moeller technique. There's two engines going on at the same time. You can see my arm is throwing down in crotchets, and my wrist is hitting, is moving in eighth notes, and they're linked together by a rolling whip. If I really exaggerate it, that's the whipping action. So if I start with my rebounds just from the wrist, and I do a whip like that, when I finish I end up with my stick down on the drum. And if I wanted to play another rebound, I've got to get the stick back up. This is something that you should be practicing on the pad. It's a really simple thing, I spoke about in the last video. But when you do your whip, if you could do one, bring that stick up so you're ready to do a rebound full stroke afterwards. There we go. That I found is a really useful thing. You know, I used to do rebounds like this. Well, that's going to knacker your wrists and fingers and everything if you play like that. And so when I practice on pulling that stick back out. When I play the drums, I'm somewhere in between. I tend to, now after a lot of practice, I tend to, whip like this, and I end up about here. And there's a reason for that, because I don't really want to come all the way back here because I'm not playing that big. When we start practicing, we start really big. You start really slow and big, and as you get the action, it becomes smaller and smaller, which means you get quieter and quieter. As I said in the last video, if you want to get good on the drums, stop having the target of playing fast and start having the target of playing quiet, because quiet means that there's less stick movement, and when there's less stick movement, that is also the key to playing fast. There, I've told you it's right. So here we go. So if we've got a whip, you bring it up. So I can follow that up with another full stroke like this, or maybe two. But because I'm finishing up there, a whip does not start here. A whip starts down here. Look, can you see? So when I whip, the stick's got to be pointing down from my elbow to come up, right? And we can turn that into a third stroke, right? So this, if I do, the way to practice this would be to do a whip, right? And then when you go into the next whip, let the stick drop down, hit the drum. And this is something I always get my students to nail this. So I'm really exaggerating. So I'm whipping down, pulling the stick back up, which you might find is a part of this that is missing, and then letting the stick come back down. And that is the pumping action, and many of you can probably do this already. It's the pumping action that you do when you're playing a rock beat. You might find you haven't got it with your left hand, so that's the next thing you can practice on a pad to develop this way of playing dynamics. These are what I call twos. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and the last one you should practice is fours. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Now from here we now have some dynamics. We can play 2s, 3s and 4s. 2s, 3s, 4s, and we can mix those up. We're now playing some music. Put your click on and try and play something musical. Both hands. Here we go. And some of you who are Led Zeppelin fans may have noticed that I played the opening to Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin. Which of course he got from Earl Palmer. See, it's music. It's music, those dynamics of music. Once you get to there, we can now apply that to the 16th note series, so we start to put the two things together. So I'm just going to do a little I won't go through the whole of this, but basically if you look at the 16th note series, we could take, say, a crotchet and whip down on that. So we're going 1 E and a 1 E and a 1 E and a 1 E and a. Then we can just add add the E in. So we can go 1 E. Now look, there we go. 1 E, 1 E. Can you see how the Moeller technique is? I'm doing a whip and a pull out. Or 1 and 1 and 1 and whip, pull, 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 whip. So I got da 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 ba ba da 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 da. You can apply the 16th note series to your whips. If we take 3. These to me are the rudiments. This is what you should be practicing on the pad. Look, and I'm just doing one hand at a time, trying to be musical. So let's get some whips and let's get some 16th note series into there, right? Triplets. Sextuplets. Now what did I just bring in? I brought in my left hand very subtly. And what was I playing at that point? I was playing rudiments, but I wasn't thinking of them as rudiments. I was thinking of filling in some of those 16 note series with my left hand, right? So play music, play dynamically, play rhythms, and make them sound good. If you can't sit and sing cool rhythms, if you can't do that, you are not going to be able to play that. Right, and this is something you need to practicing on the pad. You have to develop a vocabulary. Right, so how does this relate to rudiments? Well, let's take a few rudiments and let's have a look at them. So let's have a look at a really simple one, singles. Right, I've put an accent in at the start. Really basic. Let's see what's happening in each hand. Look, twos. Moeller twos. Left hand. Rebounds. These are the rudiments. Right, what about this one? Threes. Alright. Well, let's play a paradiddle then. What is that? That is fours, but applied to the 16th note series. 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E, 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2. Right? It's fours. If you want to play a paradiddle correctly, you've got to be able to first play fours. So you need to be doing a lot of this. Let's take double stroke rolls. I had a message after the last video from an amazing drummer called Mark DeClute, really good mate of mine, and he said, can you do a video on doubles? And I will do a video on doubles, but doubles are basically Moeller twos. So take that hi-hat pattern and just play two of them, get it down with your left hand, make sure you got that pushing, and then play two of them, and then you practice slowly like that with that lift, with the Moeller doing whip, pull, whip, pull, whip, pull. Forget all that fingers rubbish. And forget the rebound. I've got brushes, I've got no rebound. And I've got a little bit of fingers, I must admit, at the moment. How do you develop fingers? Fingers will develop from Moeller technique. If you just hold the stick lightly and steady them, so I'm doing fours there, if you can play. You can play, I say this to my students, you can play fast and you can play strong, and in fact there's a good argument for not using your fingers and doing everything from your wrist. But if you want to develop fingers, just hold the sticks a little bit lighter when you're doing these fours, and your fingers will learn to steady the sticks, and before you know it, the fingers will start to come in. It's a bit hard for me. There we go, with the fingers. I used to have a big teaching regime for my students to develop fingers, but when I got them really studying Moeller technique and really loosening the sticks and just letting their fingers follow the natural action that's going on with the drumstick, they started to develop finger control. and I'm probably going to do another video on that at some point. Let's get deeper into this. Let's have a look at paradiddles. Right, what's going on here? Sorry. Let's smooth that out. That's Moeller technique. It's basically threes. Everything on the drums. Let's take something. I'll just do one more because you probably don't believe me about this. Let's take flam triplets. So I'm going to go like. So I'm going flam onto the right, left, right, flam onto the left. So it's fours. Fours broken up rhythmically. Rudiments are made up of single hand movements that are linked together. They're interlaced. You interlace different hand movements. When somebody comes in and they can't play a rudiment, it's usually their left hand or their weak hand that's not so good. So I get them just to practice the left hand part, isolate it and practice that, nail that, and then put it back in and it's fixed. It's as simple as that. But what are these hands doing when they play rudiments? What they're playing is mixtures of different rhythms, 2s, 3s and 4s, which is how I think of it, and dynamics, different accents, which is Moeller technique. This is the stuff you need to be playing on a pad, and you need to play it rhythmical. I've given you something really simple to do today, and that's just to put a click on, and with one hand, just to learn to play the rhythms. Right, that's how you play the drums. That's how you should learn the pad. If you know some rudiments, isolate each hand. Look at what the rhythm is. Whether it'll be a 2, 3, or 4. Could be an 8. You know, it's very, very rarely. But it's probably a 2, 3, 4, and it's probably broken up using something from the 16th note series or maybe from the triplet series. That's the stuff you need to be studying. If any of this is like you've never heard of it, if you're not too sure about the accent series or accents or Moeller technique, pushes and pulls and 16th note series, triplet series, then just give me a message and I will do, while we're stuck in there, so I will do a video on this just to explain it, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about, Paddy. You know, I haven't really talked about many exercises, but I just wanted to inspire you to play, to get on, use the click. One more thing before we go, the click. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Do it. Can you see how I'm playing rhythms and I'm playing rhythmically on the pad? You're allowed to do that. If you've done a little bit of study of how your hands work, take a little bit from this lesson, just try and apply that in. That's how the practice pad should be used, to be playing beats, to be playing music. So when you go back onto that and you've got all the sounds and all the feet to deal with, your hands have been have had some attention, right? But you can work with a click. And here's 2 things I want you to do with a click. Here we're thinking it on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. But put it on the and. So you think like this. It's going to go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then learn to feel the click. That's one way. Another way is harder to do is think of the click in triplets like this. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then start counting 4. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And it will sound like dotted eighth notes to you. And that is really good, because you've really got the timing has to start to come from yourself. I now can hear this going, it sounds like dotted eighth notes to me. Who knows? It's really just only fry your head with that stuff. So use the click musically, use your hands musically, right? Another thing I wanted to just finish off with is, rather than using a click, you can put your favourite track on and play to music. A couple of days ago I filmed a video of me playing over a Busta Rhymes song called Get Out, and I was really going for it. I thought I'm going to play some really fast, nutty stuff. I'm going to finish off by putting that video up so you got a bit of drumming and music to listen to. What I did after that, which I do a lot, is I recorded myself drumming over the Busta Rhymes track, and then I erased the Busta Rhymes track and put on it some guitar and bass. And this is a musical thing that I do to just try and come up with ideas, to take the inspiration from the Busta Rhymes track, to take those grooves and I'm really playing on it, really playing some mad stuff, but to play a lot of push yourself against that track that you know, and then go back musically and see what you're going on. And I've dropped some riffs over the top. So we're going to finish off with that video if you want to see some drumming. I hope you like what I'm doing here. I'm slowly going off into weirder, more esoteric areas with it. And if you like that, just give me a shout, because I will do more. If you want some actual more information about stuff you can do on the pads and more rudimental stuff, I can do that too. So thanks for watching, and here is a little drum solo from me. Thank you.